Okay, well, welcome, Emily. Great to connect. How's life on Bali, for starters?
Bali is good. It's kind of quiet over here as the coronavirus is
Yeah,
now. So
where are you at with
a
it?
bit quiet.
How are you feeling about it? How's your observations? What's the vibe like there with it?
Well, it's just a little bit more quiet. People are still traveling. There's usually quite a lot of like Chinese tourists that come into the island, but we don't have there's a large percentage of Chinese people at the moment. So, but when I scan through the news and the media, my feeling is, blessings to clearly that are being affected by this and being frightened by it, with low immune systems and anyone who's just not feeling well and feeling a little bit frightened about it. I also feel like it's, in comparison to things like dengue or the common flu or that, the mortality rate is very, very, very low. So it's just this media freak out. I get the significant impacts and the health concerns, but it's also like, whoa, when you compare it to what else is out there, it's not as dangerous as I'm making it out to be, it seems.
Yeah, it's been quite bizarre. The panic buying is just crazy. I mean, even in the kind of more quote unquote progressive stores, the shelves are empty of toilet paper. Toilet paper is the thing right now, which is just
toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
Yeah, it's
and
funny.
Apparently in Singapore, condoms are completely sold out. Like empty shelves, empty of condoms. I have friends sending me photos of different areas where they're like, why does everybody want condoms in this situation?
You got to protect yourself.
You got to protect yourself.
Which is a good segue into your trainings. I've been hearing great things. And for listeners that are new to you, Emily Kuser, we've done an episode before. Maybe tune into that one before diving further into this one. But it'd be great to hear where you're at with this sex, death, and wealth investigation, education. How are you finding it?
Oh my gosh, it's been so amazing because the last time we spoke was before I ran the courses, these month-long 300 sex, death, and wealth informed yoga trainings, which for me felt risky and, put me on my edge of what's everybody going to think, who's going to come, is there interest? And there was a lot of interest. And I've just finished my second month-long training in sex, death, and wealth, and off the charts amazing. It's gone better than I could have possibly expected in terms of what happened in the room and what people walked away with and the conversations that people had with family members outside of the training blew my mind. So and that's kind of what I intended, was people together that are interested in these topics and also in yoga, and see people outwards into their communities and into their their relationships with their surrogate parents, siblings, boss, colleagues. Can we have conversations about sex, death, and wealth in new ways and grow from that? Yes. Turns out, yeah.
Wow.
So it's been fantastic.
It's such an interesting time for it. Like, it seems bizarre as to why it would be such, like, it would take me to my edge as well if I was asked to facilitate that conversation. At the same time, I observe how bizarre it is, how uncomfortable we do get around that conversation. I mean, even just picking one, like the wealth thing, like in the spirituality methods, whatever it is, it's always been, well, as far as I've seen, apart from some teachers, it's such a slippery topic, that of money. And so many seekers just automatically presume if you're going to be a seeker, you're going to be a poor, kind of struggling seeker without any material abundance. And and a lot of, I do hear it quite a bit from students and seekers, that of judging teachers out there for making money. So there is still that going on, that loaded, slippery perception, which even just that gets people pretty fired up, huh?
Totally. I mean, if you think about, okay, so if you think about like a yoga platform, an online platform, which there's many out there, like I know these teachers get asked on the hush hush, like, how much are they paying you per episode? Or, you know, or like a yoga studio, like how much are they paying class, or how much are they paying you per workshop? And it's like, and then it's this like really weird hush hush conversation inside, you know, money around, or somebody that owns a business, like how much are you paying your staff, you know, in some other field or a corporation. And another example is like the very famous healer here in Bali. And over the years, he's become very, very well known. And, you know, suddenly he was driving Mercedes, and he's got like nicer things in his place, and he's charging a lot for his sessions. And there's all of the people that are like, well, he must be good at what he does anymore. Like that's kind of what's underlying this. Okay, so this healer started to lifestyle, therefore his skill set or his intention must be like shitty.
Right.
Whereas before, when he was making nothing, it must have been great. This is common in the spiritual and yoga world, this kind of attitude towards wealth and money, and the it's so interesting to get into. And it goes way back to how our, you know, whatever religion our parents or our families participated in, and the commonalities in our culture and our neighborhood, you know, there's in the spiritual world and the yoga world, it's like it's more, I think, coming down and down from our religious practicing the religion at the moment. That stuff is thick when it comes to money and wealth.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, there has been charlatans and there has been people that have exploited the money thing. So it's almost valid as to why there would be that kind of suspicion and that assumption and judgment. Yet with our kind of, you know, outrage culture, it's so easy to quickly assume in a misguided way, in a misinterpreted way. So it's just such an interesting conversation in really not assuming, like actually get to know the individual rather than assuming, you know.
Ask questions and
and
assume less and ask more questions about what's going on. Take a moment to put oneself in both sides of the story of like, you know, well, what would I do in that position? And that really, that can do a lot to just play from both roles and ask, what would I do in that situation? What would people think of me? Would that change the way I behave? Would I be so concerned about what people think, or would I have my own morals and values aligned? praise and finances and gifting and whatever.
Yeah, super interesting, and really, I think a necessary conversation. The death thing, another, again, provocative subject, yet it's absurd why it's even provocative. I mean, it's undeniable, it's unavoidable. In many cultures, it's everywhere. Yet, I guess bringing it to the forefront into conversation, into investigation, really, I do feel is necessary. Coming from our, maybe not so much in Bali, but definitely here in the West, I mean, death is still in complete denial and avoidance, and yeah, it's such a necessary part of contemplation. I'd love to hear how you're finding that with your guiding of it, your teaching of it, you're getting to know it more, and the observation of your students and what they go through with that exploration.
Yeah, well, I have to first plug a book because one of the reading requirements for the training is Atul Gawande's Being. And I think with what we're facing today globally, that book is imperative. It's such an important read.
It glitched out there just for a moment. Can you? His father's a surgeon. Can you say that again?
Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal. Being Mortal.
Being Mortal. Okay.
A lot of what a fair amount of what I talk about on the training and offer from the training is there's angles that come from that particular book and things that are what do we do with our parents and our grandparents right now? What do we do with a society, a world that's growing older than ever before, and then they're suffering with their health, and that's very expensive for the family members, or maybe there's no family for this person, and so there's this side of it, a really big conversation that can be really fun to have, very educational actually. On the trainings I've led, the book Being Mortal was a reading requirement, and as happens, like students read that book, and of course there was somebody dying or in the process of dying in their family, and they said that book saved the day for them because it helped them understand the situation. It gave them really practical information of how to address finances and just being with that person and understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. And I thought that was so beautiful that to just a book can help somebody in these situations. But then on the flip side of that, a big part of the training is looking at our own process of dying. So just getting real with I will. It's not that I'm totally comfortable with that or it doesn't freak me out. My heart just started beating a little faster saying that. I'm not saying you don't have issues with it, but
yeah,
we in the training process that and go through traditional and non-traditional meditations and contemplations to get real with, okay, I am dying, and what can I do to make the most out of my living, and what can I do to also think about things like, when I die, what happens to all the stuff I've accumulated? When I die, what do I, what kind of funeral do I want to have? What do I want to do with my body? And really getting maybe uncomfortable with those things, but looking at them from a very, very calm, if possible, practical and informed way, with peers around, has been so cool. It's been so cool because people amongst peers will suddenly realize, oh, actually, I want these belongings to go to this person, or I wish for this money to go over here, but I've never written it down. I had 18, 19-year-olds on both of these month-long trainings, and they were so moved to be able to think about these things at 18, 19 years old, you know?
Yeah.
65, 70-year-olds on the program. And so just that, and also getting real with how the body ages and the process, what happens when the body dies, and being visual and real with the elements of the body. They go back to the source, and talking about these things to break down the fears a little bit, calm down the fears around things ending. And it's been very, very moving and very exciting to be part of. And I've had huge insights about my own life and my own death and my own wealth. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've never really gone deep into the practical aspects of when my body dies. I think there's programming to think, oh, I'll deal with that later. But it could happen any moment, of course. It's just so easy to avoid that actuality. But I think that's super smart to really get practical about that reality. And I think it's quite, it's like a relief, even though I haven't like done it yet. Just thinking like, at first it's overwhelming. Like you said, I can kind of feel that increase of heart rate and all of that. But then it's like, it's quite refreshing, quite a relief to investigate those practicalities, because quite often the death the contemplations are quite mystical and about, temporarily disidentifying from the ego and getting in touch with the I am, which is all good. But even just those practicalities. What do we do with all the stuff?
All of that too.
Of course.
We did all of that stuff too, because it's a yoga training. But I wanted, and I still want, in this spirituality, I want practical spirituality that's applicable to my life and my family and my friends, and bring it down to earth. And that means having these conversations, and not just conversations, time and space to integrate them and to write about it. And we did art projects and moved it through our bodies, and just noticing the butterflies in the belly and the sweaty palms, and then just going there with this, okay, whoa, okay, this body is gonna, what's that gonna be like when that goes?
Yeah. Have you gone into the work of Roshi Joan Halifax at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. And and
it's been a little while. It's been a couple of years since I did.
Yeah, I found her work really helpful in the contemplations on death, and as well, of course, Ram Dass and then Mirabai Bush and Ram Dass did that amazing collaboration. I found that really beautiful and helpful, and that whole crew's done really great work in the death realm. I mean, even the progress they made in terms of death doulership and having a place to go to consciously die. I mean, we got a lot of work to go, I think, culturally, collectively in that, but they were quite trailblazers in really facing that and creating those conscious platforms. Quite incredible, huh?
Absolutely. And it's such inspiring work. And I think people might hear that on this podcast, and they'll go it's easy to go well, that person has that path.
Right.
That person is able to go and do that kind of work. That's not my work. What do I do? How can I bring a small piece of that into my own life? And I think it really is just considering things like your will, and considering things like attitude, like what vibe do you align with in terms of like how people end their life, and like kind of transforming, if necessary, like transforming the attitude around death and endings, even when it comes to like a relationship ending. The experience is like somebody's died in the family, go through a big heartbreak, and it's as traumatic, if not more sometimes, than somebody passing. And how to be with, that sounds so cliche, but like how best to be with the endings.
Be with.
Ooh, I feel a little bit like
getting hot in here
from the conversation.
I know it is full on. Like I found it especially tricky. I think we brought it up last conversation as well. Like I find it particularly more challenging. Instantly, my kids come to mind, and that raises the heat even more.
Sure.
Whether it's contemplating like I've become increasingly like anxious on airplane rides when it's just me and I'm not like when I'm with the family. It's like if we all die together it'd be it's a cool way to go, all together. But then when I think of like dying without them, like leaving them behind, that's like it gets me hot and sweaty and sad, and it's a full-on place to go. But I do like to go there and just kind of break my heart open, and it actually deepens my love for them, and like at first in a kind of possessive way, like clinging, and then if I keep going, there's and maybe I need to cry, or maybe I need to like move or something like that, then it's like it just deepens the love, and the possessiveness then gets shifted into a kind of wisdom, a kind of attachment without the possessiveness, or something like that. It's kind of indescribable. And then when I flip it,
thank you. I think you said the L word, the love word. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like it's like deep, intensely, everything and nothing kind of love. That's and I mean, I think when you said it, you described it so beautifully, like just you like going there, but it brings up all of the stuff, all the attachments but I mean, that's also the love, isn't it? It's like to feel how much you love your family is also, I think, part of contemplating death. I think that's the scary part for a lot of people. It's like you gotta really feel how big that care is and that love is when you're looking at it going away.
Yeah, and I guess that can be zoomed out even more to the earth. I mean, we're kind of getting faced with a very possible potential of us fucking up the planet while we're still alive. That's quite a potential now, which is unique, I think, for the human experience to truly be faced with that possibility. If we don't get our shit together and make some radical changes. But like even that contemplation, I think, is great for people to, again, at first when I go there, it brings up like a kind of paranoia, and like it's too much to even contemplate. But then if I really go there, it cooks up some insight and passion. But I think it's a pretty healthy contemplation, even taking that into the earth, which is just getting, I mean, Australia's just been burning for months, and one of the biggest catastrophes that has happened, if not more, if not the biggest. So yeah, it's very interesting to be being faced by our planet just burning in front of our very own eyes. Yet, the quote unquote leaders of the world are denying that death, and it's kind of like a big magnification of our tendency to deny the process of death, isn't it?
Yeah. And, what just came to mind is in my research, and also from living here in Bali for a long time, what I've found is every culture to remember how to tread lightly on the earth and in this life. There's this concept of like tread lightly. What I keep finding is that in many cultures, there's always been this understanding. You consult your ancestors or your elders. And so what that looks like is, and I think this might be really important for people from younger countries, like US citizens that aren't natives and Australian citizens that aren't natives. But anyway, it's remembering that there's 8, you've got 8 ancestors behind, and then 8 future generations in front, and that you can consult with the 8 behind and the future beings to come. And I love that. I've found that to be quite soothing and also for anybody that has somewhat of like a meditation or inner dialogue understanding or practice, to understand that you can talk to those energies. But not only that, and it's not that it's too far out and woo to look at, like around the world, that's a practice that cultures have done. There must be something to it, to take a moment and be like, okay, those of you behind me, my mom, my dad, my mom's mom, my dad's mom, like great grandparents, even if we are adopted or whatever, just energetically taking a moment to tune in and be like, there's 8 people behind me, then there's even more, it goes on and on and on, but so these 8, you can consult with them to get help for what's my role on the earth right now? What's my role in this planetary situation? What do I need to do right now? That's practical, and that you'll get answers. And I think that's so cool.
So cool. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I often go into past ancestry contemplation, but going 8 into the future, wow, that's a trip. Woo!
Right?
I mean, even just contemplating like two generations ahead. Whew. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, wow. Yeah.
Right? I know. Your eyes were just like, yeah. It is kind of trippy.
It's trippy. It's a
sit down and like, if I close my eyes and if I take myself forward into time and I ask someone that's there, I don't have to be great at visioning or anything like that, but if I just pop a question, it's like amazing what happens when we take the time to consult the future.
Take the time.
Yeah,
we gotta do it. So on to sex. Sex. Let's talk about sex. Particularly now, it's a pretty, for lack of a better word, a touchy subject right now, with certain cases coming up of sexual abuse and whatnot. It's
so many things coming up right now.
so many things. So it's a necessary conversation at the same time with the current times of the outrage culture we're in, and people are so quick to deplatform and virtue signal and just like throw people under the bus. It's an edgy place to go, and I can see why. And yeah, I bow to you for having the courage to bring it into public conversation, well, not quite public conversation, but pretty much an open conversation. What are your observations on our current times and what's coming up for people, and your investigations with the course?
Yeah, well, oh my gosh,
It's huge.
It's huge, and without naming names, there's been a few of these uprises around sex and yoga, sex and spirituality, teachers having sex with students or flirtation with students and whatever. And it's personally been really fascinating to listen to, and also to educate myself and inform myself from both parties. If anything I've learned from researching sexuality and asking some bigger questions is to take the time. Again, like, take the time before assuming something. Reach out if you want to make an assumption or a judgment, fine, but the more informed thing to do would be to get more information by going and asking directly to the source, or because it's never just one way.
Yeah, I'll just stop you right there for a moment, because with a couple of the cases that have become very public, some listeners have actually reached out to me like, when are you going to make a statement? When are you going to, you not making a statement is pretty much promoting sexual abuse or misconduct or whatever. And so far, my response has been that, I'm gathering information. I don't want to assume. I don't have enough information yet. That's been my response. I don't want to just throw these particular people under the bus and just jump on the kind of bandwagon, so to speak. So I totally hear what you're saying there, and it actually feels kind of nice to hear that from a peer of. Because that's what Joe and I have been speaking of, and that's what quite a few other friends and I have been speaking of. Like, what's the appropriate thing to do? Like, I don't know. I don't know enough yet. And gathering that information, having the conversation, seems like a healthier thing to do than just get outraged, unless it's completely blatantly, it's undeniable how. Hurtful someone has been or whatever, then, some kind of action needs to be taken. But when it's kind of those grays come in and it's not clear, yeah, we got to talk about it, don't we?
We got to talk about it, and like, I think the best way to talk about it is to, especially with sex and sexuality, there's this, what I've noticed is there's this readiness to go and like talk about it in terms of other people's sexual actions and behaviors, and go out there and talk about our ideas and our preferences for like what other people do. But the moment it's like directed back inwards, where it's like, what are my sexual behaviors? What are my sexual ethics? Where have I fucked up? Where am I doing the treat? Where am I feeling my own sexual self-worth and openness? And where am I shut down? And it's got to start there, because otherwise this is still just like this has been happening for millennia. Like. Yeah. So it's bringing the conversation home. What is my sexual behavior? Where are the places I know I'm being messy? It's not my fault. I've got a lot of cultural taboos around and all of that stuff. Like, bring it home, and then start to look maybe, all right, that review having taken place, okay, now with a little bit of like practicality again, like bringing it really, really down to earth, then take that feeling and apply it to maybe something that's going on outside, like some of these teachers being taken down for scandals and, you know, what's in the media. But it's, yeah, I can say it again and again. The humbling work, and where it really hits home is to like kind of take a look at how we're acting, as sexual beings, and also where am I, you know, with these situations that have been coming up, what I've been asking myself too is, wow, where have I been really quiet when I could speak up? Where have I been really loud when I should have been more quiet? And kind of gauging my own behavior in terms of social media, like you were talking about, and in terms of like chiming in, where, like, am I afraid of getting myself into trouble or being knocked off of my platform or out of my seat of a teacher by interfering, you know, and really getting honest with these questions. I don't have answers. It's just like, I think to me, it's really important for me to get real with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, same. And I kind of tug of war with the same thing. Not tug of war, but just toggling between that, like, and listening to other people and their feedback of like, you know, when are you going to speak up, but then also sitting with it, inquiring, and then speaking to some other like wise people and getting their 2 cents, and then weighing that up in my own heart as well. And I don't know either yet, but we'll see where it all goes. And it does seem like a healthy part of the unfoldment, everything coming up and being brought up into attention from who knows how long of all of this not being talked about. You know, even just the last 10 years has dramatically shifted, I think, what was even acceptable in like the yoga scene, for example, which just isn't acceptable at all now. And I think that's important to consider as well. Like, just there's been dramatic like awakenings, you could say, in the feminine and the feminine empowerment, and it's amazing that women are speaking up and bringing these allegations and cases and situations forth. And I think to outweigh all of those years of suppression and not having a voice, the automatic way of bringing the information forth is through outrage. It seems very healthy for now, like a huge express and release, a huge catharsis, exactly. And so it does seem like a healthy thing. But we're like trying to just work it out, well, maybe a middle ground or whatever. I don't know how to quite frame it in dialogue because it's completely new, this type of conversation.
And that we all have a voice, that we really do all have a way of expressing ourselves, which before there wasn't this like viral way to express.
Right.
Which is, it's like huge in the way that like these, what's okay is no longer, what was okay is no longer okay, as you said. But it's, I think that has a huge part to do with people have a voice now virtually. Yeah, exactly. Every person has a voice on the planet. That's amazing. And when we use it in that way and put our opinions and our ideas out there around sex and sexuality and spirituality and God and goddess, it's like that it makes a really big difference. But it's that means our whole collective is going like on some big waves right now.
Yeah. Now, we kind of went there a little bit in our last podcast together with some of the movements of neo-tantra and bringing sexual exploration in. What are your views on that in terms of like, I mean, first I'll just express my observations. And I mean, I'm friends with several Tantra teachers, which admittedly would be under more of a neo-Tantra like framework. And I call them out on it as well. So, you know, anyone listening that's in that kind of method, it's all out in the open. We're all talking about it. It's another kind of healthy conversation. But a lot of the emphasis is on sexual freedom, which is great. We want to be sexually free. But what we're seeing a little bit of is like that stimulation of the Vajranadi, that kind of addiction to that exalted state, addiction to it, the orgasmic kind of state. But then the other polarity of that, like it feels like a transcendental kind of cosmic state, yet it's not quite. And then there's a polarity of that of really depressed. And I mean, it's been quite public of some of these leaders. Two of them committed suicide, you know, and they weren't talking about the struggle of it. It was more about the theatrics and the orgasmic openness and freedom. Yet apparently, behind closed doors, equal to that was struggle and dark night of the soul and suicidal tendencies. And I think that's pretty common. I'd love to just in a moment get your observations on that kind of addiction to the high, the neo-tantric point of view of like life should be constantly indulgent, and some of them are bringing in a bit more equilibrium and contemplation of death and grounding it back down for integration. But quite often not. There's a lot of younger teachers just kind of flying high with that kind of pre-Saturn returns vitality, you know, which again and again we see that kind of, it's kind of dangerous that falling back down after being so high for quite a while. I ranted on a bit there, but I'd love to get your view on what you're seeing in kind of one of the epicenters of that in Bali.
Yeah. Well, it's a really great question. Recently I was thinking about this, and I did hear from someone I admire quite a lot in this work, and she was saying that you know, classical tantra can really only take someone of the modern age so far. Like, it's very complex, and you need a guru, you need a teacher to really be initiated in classical tantra, so on and so forth. It's like that said, many of our friends have been deeply enmeshed in the classical tantra teachings, right? And then what she said was the neo-tantra can be very helpful to a certain extent for people to have embodied practices that are aligned with modern day living. And I agree. So there's some things that work and are helpful, like you were alluding to, like you mentioned a few neo-tantra practices where it's like, okay, you see some of that stuff happening. So I feel like there's not one answer. What I can say from my perspective is I actually think it's all okay, because this has happened in so many different masks and shades over time with spirituality. So like the younger generation that's going through their spiritual seeking and education and experiences, it's like, go to town. Like,
Yeah.
I had a super high high. I had multiple super high highs and really crashing lows.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that took me to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. And
Yeah.
I can look back and remember how painful those moments were and confusing. And it's like, it's almost kind of like, you know, whatever the cloak or whatever the costume in spirituality you wear to get your high and to get your crashing low, cool. That yes, when you're playing with sexuality and sexual practices, it seems that there's more risk because you could end up in a crazy ass situation where you're being sexually manipulated and falling prey to some scary shit. Or with sexual energy, really, really short circuiting the system by getting addicted to orgasmic highs and what that will do to the brain. Circuitry can be like, those are risks. And I think you and I have both seen people, I've definitely seen and know people that are, you know, like, I wonder if they're going to come back fully from that. And maybe that has something to do with these suicides that we've experienced within this world of exploration in Neo Tantra. I don't know. You know, everybody's got a whole other personal story aside from their spiritual practices. But like, the sexual energy stuff is real. Spiritual seeking can be really confusing. And then you add someone's like, Saturn in return, or their what's the word I'm looking for? They're not novice, but when someone's really naive, they've got like this young innocence to them, which happens to a lot of young women. They're in their spring season still, and they're easy to manipulate and like easy to also have a lot of willpower. But like, it's that kind of stuff when you start getting into the you get men and women together of different ages and like in these workshops and trainings and stuff. And I'll speak for the young women's behalf, like the young women might not have the information. They haven't had the time to do their own healing around their religious oppression and their, you know, their own like religious imprints and cultural imprints. Like, they haven't had the time to live through that stuff yet. So but then like bigger picture, it's someone's path to go through the pain of that. And even like when I say that, there's me like, I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I should fully say that, because there's those really shitty situations that happen, but like it happens, therefore it's reality.
Yes. No, I really appreciate that response. And once again, it's quite refreshing to hear, like, it's all everyone's path, you know, it's all incredibly unique, and everyone's got to go through whatever they got to go through. And I do agree. I do think that some of these neo-tantric practices, it's very liberating for people and incredibly cathartic, and it can be done beautifully. And if their journey is to be way higher for too long, that they do come crashing down, it is part of their journey. And I think as like the scene kind of matures, and through some of these deaths, suicides, there seems to be a bit of maturing around it, I guess, and a bit more discernment and wisdom, and kind of even disclaimers in a way, like to know what you're getting yourself into, which I feel a correlation similar to a lot of the plant medicine explorations that are going on, which is beautiful and can be incredibly healing. It feels quite similar. Like, it feels like it's still very much in its infancy
Yeah.
in our culture. Like we've kind of
In
taken
terms of like these things going mainstream.
yes,
Big
exactly.
time. It's like gone to both have gone to massive extremes, which is now we're seeing the side effects of that. I mean, I spent like 3 years going pretty deep into plant medicines between 2011 and 2013 or so, and I have friends that have continued to deeply go down that path. I have some friends that have completely lost the plot. But I live in an extreme kind of like circles.
How have they lost the plot? Because I've observed that too. But
it's gone really global.
Yeah.
Lost the plot. Like when I say lost the plot, I mean, and this is also applying to the Neo Tantra conversation. It's like when someone's gone gray, you can't read their personality. Their personality's been washed away.
Yeah.
And that's my first telling sign of that person's lost the plot. Also part of their path. I don't know if they're going to come back from it. Hope they do. Blessings. But like if they've gone colorless, if they've gone gray, and it's not just because they're like ill, like, but I can tell the difference between. I can tell when somebody's gone. They've
literally gone gray.
They're gone, and also their eyes are empty. They call the eyes the windows to the soul, and like when someone is disconnected from that, I can see and feel that energetically from someone else, and that happens. I know people that are they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
From a lot of plant medicine or a lot of psychedelics or a lot of, even it happens with lots of meditation with people that have been meditating in one way for decades and decades. Like, where are you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess from a particular vantage point, that's kind of the point for some people. Like the whole notion of destroying the ego, that whole thing. It's like, I guess you've succeeded in a way. Yeah, in a way. But I mean, when it does fuck with your circuitry that much, and you can feel like a kind of soul deadening, soul numbing type thing. Yeah, I've definitely observed that as well. And I had a similar kind of window, 2010 to 2013, of doing a lot of plant medicine, and I'm super grateful for those times. And it literally every journey felt like the equivalent of a couple weeks deep yoga immersion, and I got so much from it, and I'm thankful it created the life I'm in right now. To be honest, it cut through a lot of my conditioning and crap. At the same time, I'm very grateful. I'm grateful I've kind of integrated it, and I'm not doing it as much as I was, because I don't think it's actually sustainable to do it that much. Which, I mean, at that time when I was deep in it, I had that viewpoint of like, more is better. Everyone should be drinking this shit every day, and that'll be the cure for the world pathologies. And I still think there's some truth to that. I mean, it'd be incredible if our world leaders would all get together and have a psychedelic trip every now and then. I think that'd be a great.
Yeah. I agree.
Be a great thing to do. At the same time, like, again, after seeing some crazy shit go down, similar to the kind of neo-tantric, like suicides and deaths, seen similar type downfalls to the plant medicine scene, and it's cultivated a bit more discernment, definitely from my attention, which I think is valuable for people to hear, because there's still a lot of like mainstream curiosity about diving into these medicines. And I mean, I'm even hearing from like, it's very common with IT people. They're going so deep with computers and technology and into this artificial intelligence thing. There seems to be a lot of correlations with plant medicine and that, and exploring consciousness whilst exploring the computer, which could be helpful just to have a bit of conversation around people that have seen both the pros and the cons of it.
I'm gonna do another plug. I'm not getting obviously paid for plugging a book or whatever, a Netflix show, but I'm sure a lot of people listening have probably checked out The Goop.
Yeah, I just watched that the other night
on Netflix, and
I was quite impressed.
She's got like 6 episodes on there, and what I really dig about what she's doing is she's talking about what the mainstream is. They're talking about these things, but she's just going for it with her Goop team, and they're going and covering things like mushrooms, magic mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, taking the team on a journey, Wim Hof breathing, women's pleasure workshops, energy healing, and that I love how excited her team is, and they seem so honest and eager, and but this might on my part sound a little bit snobby, but I was watching it like, surely this Goop team has done these things before, but then it made me realize how what circles I've been roaming in. It just seems like such old news, like all of it seems so old news. And then I realized it's like getting out there. And the one that they did on the mushrooms with the team, anyone listening right now, go and watch that, because go watch stuff like that. And the women's pleasure episode that they ran.
Cool. Yeah, I only saw the first episode, the magic mushroom one, and I was quite impressed at how vulnerable the team got, and honest, and how deep they went. And I liked how they had the 2 guys from the MAPS Institute there, which are, for those listening, there's a fairly new organization in the States that's emerging, that is doing a lot of research with psychedelics and this re-emerging psychotherapeutic format for using psychedelics. So it's not to kind of break through the collective perception that it's a party drug, party experience. They're showing incredible work with MDMA and psilocybin, like literally with a therapist going deep into particular issues with that medicine and having remarkable breakthroughs. So it was good having them 2 on it. And I think that was a great conversation. And the professionals that were supporting them down in, I forget which location, but they were down in the jungle somewhere, weren't they?
Right. And it's so, it's so cool that with the passing of Ram Dass being such a, it's such he's such an icon, and it's like an era closing. But as he passes, this mainstream opening up towards psychedelics and MDMA, and the stuff he was doing when he was younger that was so taboo and so misunderstood is now getting this second wave. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have been interesting for him, because all of it was completely legal when he started doing it. And then there was that whole 60s revolution where people took it too far, of course, and some people started dying. And then they made it illegal after it being very legal and in, psychotherapy and whatnot. And then it's making a full circle comeback with probably much more intelligence. I mean, with Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan talking about it, Gwyneth Paltrow now, like it's it's really cool. I remember there was a movie with Jennifer Aniston where ayahuasca popped up into it a few years ago, and that was like that one, and that was like the first time I'd seen it pop up in like a mainstream movie, and I mean that was more of a parody on it. I mean, that made me cringe because I was still kind of into it, and I was like, "Oh, this is a laugh. It's a joke," but really good conversations around it now, huh? It's good.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm so down for it's just like down, less fear, more love. Let's talk about this stuff, and instead of shaming it or putting a stamp of that's bad or evil on it, and instead just having like a down-to-earth conversation about these things. It's not like everybody's got to go and do psychedelics. It's more like having some curiosity is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the sauna the other day, and it happened quite randomly. This older man, totally didn't see it coming, quite overweight, just he brought up the conversation of psilocybin. It's like, well, what do you think of this psilocybin thing? It was a really intelligent conversation, and it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, I didn't know how honest I should get, and it ended up being a really deep conversation. And he is contemplating doing it in a supported environment, one-to-one, to deal with some shit and to help him like face his weight issues and why he can't just like very, very obese, unhealthy man. And he was getting really vulnerable. It was really cool, just in typical sauna at a health club. And it was quite inspiring, quite refreshing, because I mean, that's a very old, thick energy as men to just bottle everything up and just talk about like the shit you hear men talk about in those saunas, like just bitching about this and moaning about the wife, and it's just, and then to hear him like bring that up, it was really cool.
Yeah, I can imagine how that would be really good for him. And I just saw this vision of people all over the world kind of doing something like that in a supported environment, like that, where it's less about getting high or stoned and more about like, oh, nothing's worked. My culture is feeling flat. Everything's flat. I don't know what to do. There's more meaning to this life. I can feel it. I just, and using these psychedelics to go inwards in a loving, supportive group can be so helpful for people.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see what comes of this more and more around the world.
Yeah. A good friend of mine.
That said, it's like, it's still, people have lost the plot.
Lost the plot, yes.
The extreme side of it, where it's not just like, it's so.
Yeah. For listeners that are curious about it and new to this kind of conversation and kind of seeking it out, I mean, definitely do your research, just I invite a bit of discernment, and like I definitely went into it very naive, and I thought everyone facilitating this medicine must be incredibly pure and holy and got their shit together. And I mean, that was just, people project that about the yoga teacher as well, but I think it's another kind of, for lack of a better word, like another kind of level to be in that role of facilitating these types of psychedelic journeys. I really do think it's a big responsibility. So there are a lot of people out there that they've had great experiences, and before they know it, they're a shaman, quote unquote. And so it's just definitely worth doing a bit of research. Right. And I definitely see, some crazy shit going on with that. And it would be cool to, I mean, there's no way of regulating it. That's stupid, but possibly a little bit. But I guess over the years, there may be a maturing with that as well, of people working out like it's a pretty earnest role to step into. You may want to, study with a shaman for a decade. Like I've got a dear friend that studies with. Yeah, I've got a friend that I meet up with in Hawaii, and he studies with some shamans down in Peru, and he takes it so seriously, like in a beautiful way. He's like, I'm not going to facilitate, in California, in Hawaii, in the West until the master says I can, until I've really learnt. It's kind of like going through a teacher training or a degree, or like really earning that kind of black belt. I do appreciate that in stepping up to that role of a shaman. Over the years, I've definitely seen some pretty irresponsible facilitations of the medicine, which you live and you learn. So worth noting for listeners that are.
So there's, and this is after going on, after the life I've lived so far and what I've learned, I keep coming back to how much I love the bare bones of a asana practice, because it's so, no one can do it for. It takes time and patience, and if you rush through it, it's not going to work very well. It's like, oh my God, it's so that thing that we just don't get so often in life anymore, especially with so much tech. And it's this like steady, progressive practice that will keep you in relationship with body and breath for a long time. And I keep falling in love with yoga in new ways, especially the asanas, and I just keep finding more and more magic pockets in it. I've had big breakup spells too with the whole yoga thing, but like I think in terms of something that takes care and is a long time maintenance practice, it's so good.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
So good.
And it's funny that we haven't even talked about asana until like an hour into it, hour and 10 into it. But I agree. It's like that.
It's okay, because it's under my feet. It's under our feet. It's like it's always going to be there. And it's such a saving grace. I'm so grateful. Yeah. So grateful. There's so much intelligence in the asana practice and what it can do for us in this day and age.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I mean, again, that kind of reflection on these medicines being available and the psychedelics being available, it is good to remember we can access those states in our own body. And, stories do indicate that that's what happened with the yogis when they couldn't find their soma anymore in external form. So their magic mushrooms or whatever it was back in the day, and they developed these asanas and pranayams and mantras to generate that energy, which we've both experienced. And it is great to remember that again and again and fall in love with it again and again, that it is all right here. All the love is right here. All the bliss is right here. What we're hearing a lot right now with the whole guru conversation, the guru is right here. We just got to pay enough attention to it. listen deep enough to it.
Pay enough attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder, when I was in my late teens and I started to do yoga, and I was having some really, I woke up in a lot of different ways, kind of like a lot of people talk about their late teens, early 20s, having big spiritual awakenings that set them on this course. But, looking back, it was like I was so high. And so all of the stuff, I was in my late teens and I could pick up any yoga text or tantric text or any book, and it was like I had written it. And that's one of the signs that like consciousness is very is elevated or has opened, is when you could pick up any kind of spiritual text and it's as if you're the one writing it and you get the codes. And I feel like so much of my journey was to get back to that, because they never stay there. It's like I've heard so many people say this, it's like I've always just wanted to get back to that, and you cannot. But it's like the window. It's also what psychedelics will do. It's also what all of this stuff will do. It'll give a reminder of like, oh my God, there's something so beautiful at the core of it all. And yeah, the asana and the way the breath can weave through the body in this quiet way is so powerful the only thing that's coming to mind is like a beautiful river rafting ride through the Grand Canyon where it's super chill, you just get to like cruise.
Yeah. Indeed. And then naturally, practitioner gets attached to that. So I like the initial high you were talking about. Oh, you just want to kind of get back to that initial beginner's mind high. And then often it feels like you've gone backwards, but you actually haven't. It's just a maturing, it's a necessary plateau. So we're floating through flowing through the Grand Canyon. You're flowing, you're in the zone. It's beautiful. It's like the practice of cherishing that. At the same time, most likely we'll come across some more, whether we call it karma or whatever shit we got to deal with, whether it's death or sex stuff or wealth stuff or the whole panoply of stuff. And that's beautiful. Like Ram Dass calls it grist for the mill, and he talked a lot about that very very intense period of plateau where we had it, we were flowing, and then all of a sudden, I'm confused again, I'm pessimistic again, it's all gritty again, and that's grist for the mill. That's like manure, kind of like just shit to cook up some more, and that's necessary, when it gets grit. Yeah. And we need that shit, that's what makes us grow and develop, and then we can eventually flow again. And then there'll be even more grit, as we age some more and there's some extra wrinkles and shit.
Write that down. It's manure.
Which one? Grist for the mill?
Yeah, that's good. Grist for the mill, yeah.
Yeah. He's got a book called Grist for the Mill. It's a good one.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll check that out.
Yeah. And because I think that is a common one, getting attached to the flow.
Oh yeah, because it's so good. Who wouldn't,
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and it's so good, and I mean that's why people get attached to the sexual highs too. Is because it feels so good. It's like, but then it's not. It doesn't last.
So before we wrap it up, I mean, this could open up a whole can of worms. Actually, it's like a whole podcast in itself. I might leave it for the next one. Actually, I was going to open up the kind of conversation. Okay. We might like touch on it and then like really talk about it next time in our third one. but like the yogic attempt to sublimate, to suppress sexual energy. Of course, it can be done effectively, you know? It can be done effectively and you can generate beautiful energy out of it. What are your observations in that? And like, because I do think it's different for a woman than it is for a man, of course. I do think it's a different dynamic. And my observations first, like when the yogi is trying to sublimate and trying to circulate their sexual energy and not act out on their sexual energy and bring it up into a more transcendental high, but they haven't brought it back down into true sexual healing or sexual honesty, whatever we want to call it. Do you feel that's part of some of the issues of the imbalance of men acting out, whether it's yoga teachers, gurus, priests? What are you seeing there with men, yogis, and this attempt to master their sexual energy into a kind of, I mean, Ramdas talks about this predicament as well as like the horny celibate. Like someone being honest about their sexuality is much more free than a horny celibate denying their sexuality. What are your observations on that before we wrap it up?
Well, actually, like one of my favorite, there's a teacher, Lauren Roche, and he's quite a good friend of mine, and he speaks like if he's one of the best ones to listen speak about this kind of thing. He's hilarious when he talks about it, and he's got some really good points. Of like,
he wrote the Radiant Sutras,
his interpretation of the Radiant Sutras, but it just has some really great perspectives on, gosh, we're striving, men and women that are seekers tend to strive for this without maybe even consciously understanding or knowing what we're doing. We're striving for this, like monkhood or nunhood, where there's something attractive about the solitude in a cave, or the renunciate, meaning the one who's given up their family and their money, their passions and stuff like that, and their sexuality. And where I get so curious is like, why is that so attractive to a seeker? This kind of, I'm going to give up the sexuality. And I hadn't, that wasn't part of my journey so much. I didn't think about it, never like was a thing for me. I wanted to kind of renounce and to be kind of monk-like. But for men, I see way more than women this attraction towards renouncing sexuality and suppressing it because of it getting in the way, or an idea that it will get in the way of their spiritual evolution. And maybe, but what I've heard and what I feel is that you go into any monastery or a place where, or a temple or whatever, where it's predominantly men practicing spirituality together and they're not having sex. When you start to get the dirt on what's actually happening in these places, it's alarming, like the unspoken stories that are actually happening amongst the boys, amongst the men, the health problems, the things that are coming up in their mind during their meditation practices that are being unaddressed, pushed down, it's kind of scary, actually. And then what happens as a response to that? Well, look at what's happened with the Catholic Church and all the stories that have been revealed around priests, what's the word, like
molesting
priests being with younger boys, molesting younger boys. And it's not that this is always the case by any means. Sometimes I feel like boys are thrown into this path maybe without developing self-awareness first, and then there's not enough self-awareness there, and then these ideas of what's right sexually there's no foundation to like grow that or like understand that, and so it gets distorted. And then there's like we had this guy that came into town last year. He was a monk for 40 years, and he disrobed. He came and he's been talking, and he has he was so angry, absolutely angry at his choices and how the role he was put into fucked up his sexuality, fucked up his brain.
Wow.
He can't ejaculate up in the way that he feels would benefit him or in a healthy way. He has got a lot of biological issues with his all of it. I can't quite remember the details of what he spoke about, but basically he has really, really big issues with his sexuality and his sexual functioning as a man because of being in these very strict meditations and apparently not being, being celibate, pushing down his sexuality. So these are very common things. It's just, I think now we're starting to hear about it, whereas it hasn't been discussed for a long time. So what do I think? I think it's better to talk about sex and talk about what the real desires are and let that air out instead of restricting it, because you take anything away from people and it makes people want it more mentally.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to add to that, it's like this kind of old model of striving for Buddhahood or enlightenment, in which that sexual energy is passing all the way up through the Sushumna Nadi, which of course can occur, when the Sushumna is completely clear. You can put all your sexual energy up and down and up, and it's a clear river like the Grand Canyon flowing right through, and there's nothing in the way, and it's just bliss. It's just bliss. And I think, because that is like the pinnacle of the spiritual experience, so to speak, for so long. So the old framework to get into that state was that of renunciation. Renounce sex, renounce this, renounce that, renounce the other. And women are too distracting, renounce that. Money's too distracting, renounce that. So I kind of get it. Like, if we're wanting just to put all that energy up into transcendence. But if we've got these sexual desires, that's being the phony holy, that's being the horny celibate, in which we're not ready yet. We got to talk about sex. We got to talk about this shit. It's one thing to sit in that space of the Sushumna Nadi is clear. Like there's no sexual energy, there's no desire, there's nothing. And I think that is a state we can get in. I mean, that's the transcendental, whatever we want to call it, the void, or just pure being. But that, I think it is a typical male seeker trait to strive for that kind of stone Buddha. I don't know why. I think I've had a moment of striving for it. And then I saw just the ridiculousness of it. Just that old model of enlightenment is quite seductive. And when our shit comes up, it's easier just to be a hypocrite. And I think that's what a lot of these people have done. It's like, it's easier just to be a hypocrite and stuff it back down and project and preach. And I think until recently, it was way harder. It just wasn't in conversation. So what do you do with it if the only model is up, 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 up? Yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's transcend. And there was no real, except for, maybe Osho brought it to conversation, and a couple of other, like if people did get into the actual tantric literature, but there wasn't much, especially in religion, much conversation around what do you do with your dark thoughts? What do you do with your desires? What do you do with your sexuality? So I kind of get it. It's kind of just easier just to be a hypocrite until it's unavoidable.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that, I also think what happens with seekers is there's something in their life that they can't control, like life, you can't really control life, but you can, to some degree, control your spiritual path. Right. You can be very controlling about, very disciplined. A person can be very disciplined and very controlling about what they let in and what they don't let in, and about how clear, how disciplined they are going to be about their practices of getting closer to this clear Sushumna channel or transcending. But like that does right there imply that there's something that they're running away from that is not satisfactory, pain of life. And that also, what I feel right now in this moment, just tuning into that, is like it doesn't allow for a lot of surrender, actually, which is funny because these practices are inherently about surrendering into that space, not controlling it. Yeah. And so that's an interesting journey to go down, of learning about one's own like coping mechanisms, control issues, not letting love in. You know what I mean? It's funny how actually like letting go of the practices and all of that stuff can be the very thing that will take somebody right into that space too.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I remember Richard Freeman talking about like the practice being like a real slippery avocado pit. Like if you grab on it too hard, it'll just keep slipping away. So it's like this slippery nature of the practice. Can't grip too hard, and you got to keep letting it go. And
yeah, I know that one. I get what he's saying with that.
Yeah. But Emily, it's been so great to connect. Is there anything else you want to speak about or let the listeners know about? Have you got any upcoming courses or offerings?
Yeah. I'll be on the road in Europe this summer, and in Japan, I'll be teaching some 3-day sex, death, and wealth trainings. And I'm about to open up my women's self-care training in May at the Yoga Barn here in Ubud, Bali. Really looking forward to that, because I get to kind of stream a bit of what we've just spoken about into my women's work, and bring even more of that into that offering, death and wealth. And then the next big training for sex, death, and wealth will probably be at the end of 2021 here in Ubud, Bali. Yeah.
Oh,
and so from that, just kind of in creation mode right now, and coming out of the, exiting out of this big program. But yeah, if anybody's interested in coming and diving into this this material with me and having some fun and some juicy conversations, then check out my schedule for what I'm doing in Europe and in Japan and in Bali. And it's been, I love that we get to connect in this way, Stu. I super appreciate the invite to do a second podcast.
Yeah, likewise. The feedback from the first one. Oh, good.
Cool people.
Yeah. It's been a great practice, and I'm super grateful to get you back on as well. I got amazing feedback from the first one we did, and it feels really natural to get you back on, and that it's a big conversation, so we can definitely keep continuing it, keep chewing on it, keep reporting back, and take it from there.
And I feel like you and I could talk for like 3 hours about so many different things.
There's a lot.
We definitely gotta have a cutoff time.
Well, I appreciate you. Much love, Emily, and we'll connect soon, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank
love.
you so much.
Bye.
Mwah.